Dishonored 2 came out a long time ago, but just now I played it. Yes, I know, boomy. But today we're gonna talk about the story, characters and gameplay of Dishonored 2, so enjoy watching. We're gonna start with the combat because it's the most famous thing about the Dishonored series, and yes, well, it's good. It's really good. It improves on the combat from the last game in the sense that everything feels smoother and you have different abilities if you play as Emily. I did play as Emily, and that is the canon version, and we will go more in depth on her abilities, but Corvo's abilities are the ones from the last game and they function in pretty much the same way. Emily's on the other hand are a bit more interesting and even overpowered in some way, I would argue. But let's start with the beginning. She also has the far reach that lets you teleport, as well as the dark vision that lets you see through walls. These are the ones that she shares with Corvo, but the other ones are more interesting. The first one is Mesmerize, that basically alerts enemies and sends them out on patrol, which can be really useful. This next one is the funnest to use. It's called Domino, and as its name suggests, you can link enemies together and whatever happens to one of them happens to all of them. So that means if you link them together, you only have to kill one of them, not the others as well. Of course, there is a maximum number of enemies that can be linked, cause otherwise you could link all of them and just kill the whole level with one click. The next ability is a bit broken if you ask me. It's called Doppelganger, and well, it summons a doppelganger. But the problem is that this doppelganger is fucking cracked at video games. Like, look at this. I'm literally standing and doing nothing, and this dude just kills half the level. It's broken, but I'm not gonna lie, it's fun to use. Yes, it costs a lot of mana, but it's still too good. But again, from a game design point of view, you may argue that it takes away from the difficulty of the game, but it's really fun to just watch the doppelganger start chaos around the level. The last of Emily's abilities is called Shadow Walk, and that's what it is. It turns you into a shadow so that you can walk around more stealthily. The combat and the assassinations are as brutal as in the first game, which is a really good thing. They feel so satisfying, and that again is a great thing. The sneaking and the parkour are good, but sometimes I feel that the enemy detection AI is a bit broken, and you get detected in stupid ways, but it's not too bothersome. Overall, the combat is really good, which to be honest was to be expected because Arcane games always have good combat, except Redfall, fuck Redfall. But before going further, subscribe and like, or else I'll send Corvo after you. Now let's talk about the story. I liked it, but I still have my problems with it. To give a quick summary of the story, Emily's aunt Delilah comes and takes the throne from her, and then Emily has to take it back, and we spend most of the game killing Delilah's allies to weaken her. It's a very basic story in terms of plot, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but firstly, the prologue of the game takes about 10 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating. In 10 minutes we learn a bit of what happened between the games, the developers introduce a serial killer subplot, Delilah comes and takes the throne from us, and we leave done well. I usually like when the developers cut the bullshit in games, but with this one I actually wanted the bullshit. I wanted to learn what happened between the games more in depth, I wanted to talk to Corvo, or at least see him for more than 30 seconds. I wanted this type of exposition, but instead the developers pulled Delilah out of their asses, like she comes into Dunwall Tower and she just takes over like that. I mean, I understand that she plotted this for a long time, but still it just felt like a joke when she just walked in and just like that she is the new queen. Plus she is immortal, but that actually has a pretty cool backstory. But don't think that her backstory is anything special. Basically she is the sister of Emily's mother, but the problem is that her mother is not Emily's mother, but in fact she was a maid in the castle, so all her childhood she was restrained from the royal court and stuff like that. Eventually she and her mother got thrown out of the castle because Emily's mother broke something and blamed Delilah. Of course after that her life went downhill and blah blah, that's the reason she does all she does in the game. It's not necessarily a bad story, but we've seen this 100 times before. But that is about every problem I have with a character in this game. Every other character I found interesting. I love the new setting of the game, which is a place called Sarkonos. I also like the fact that they meddled with the Outsider and the Void more, because the whole plot of this game is connected with him. Because in the first game, they introduced this mysterious character that is really interesting, and they basically did nothing with him. So I'm glad they explored him more. Emily is actually a really good protagonist, She doesn't have any cheesy and annoying lines, and she actually has nice character evolution. At the beginning of the game she is the queen, but throughout the game she is a fugitive, and she sees more of what the common people see. With that knowledge she has the choice to make some decisions that impact the world in a good or a bad way, which is always nice. Of course we learn the impact that these choices have at the ending of the game, but it's still nice to see that your actions have consequences. Our companions in this game are also enjoyable. The main ones are Sokolov that we know from the last game, and this mysterious one called Megan. They are both really cool and they actually develop throughout the game. But the other villains other than Delilah, this is where the game really gets good. Every single sub-villain is so interesting, and yes, some of them are evil just for being evil, but still they are great. You have this woman that leads an army of women assassins that also have powers like us. Then there is this duke that supports Delilah that you can replace with his body double. But my favorite one has to be this mad inventor called Jindosh. His level is so cool, like his house moves, the walls of his house can be rearranged, and it's a really cool level, even though it's not my personal favorite. My favorite one is in an abandoned mansion, and the outsider gives you a device to change timelines. And so you have to basically navigate the level using the present and the past. It was such a cool level. If you played the game you surely know what I'm talking about. But in general the level design in this game is top class. Everything is designed to give you spaces to hide and sneak through, and you have multiple ways you can solve a level. It's really good. Atmosphere is something that this game does right as well. You always feel on the edge that you might get spotted, and it just feels so tense, which is appropriate given the state of the Empire. My favorite moment in the game is when you finally get back to Dunwall Tower and enter the city to see it ruined by Delilah. This disturbing lullaby plays, and the atmosphere is so creepy, it's such a good setting. Have a listen. The sound design and the voice acting are also top level, and overall Dishonored 2 is a great game. If you didn't play it until now, at least I'm not the only one. If you watched so far, thank you, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.